wanted to talk about Christ consciousness, which is a phrase that I think is becoming a bit more popular in the New Age community. But it's really a resurgence of a consciousness that has been available to us since the beginning of time. And I know it can be a bit of a triggering word. It causes our ears to perk up um, because of the word Christ. And I know for me, and I know for a lot of us, we have a lot of programming and past wounding, ancestral wounding around religion and anything related to Christianity or the word Christ or Jesus. So that's why I wanted to talk about it today, because it's something that I feel like I have, I at one point in my spiritual journey had to um, wrestle with that a little bit because of the terminology. And it's something that I feel like I've integrated and can now share with you, and hopefully it can be helpful to you as you're perhaps awakening to the concept of Christ consciousness. So I'd like to start in that. Let's start with what Christ consciousness is and what it means. So, essentially, what it means is complete unconditional love. That's what Christ consciousness is. It's the consciousness of unconditional love, the consciousness of non-judgment, the consciousness of complete divine love. That's what it means, really. And it's a state of being, a state of awareness that is available to anyone and everyone. And it's something that each and every one of us have at our disposal at any time, and it just requires a bit of awareness and activation around it. So at the end of this, I'll do a Christ consciousness DNA activation for those who feel called to meditate on that and activate that within themselves. So let's see. Jesus Christ was an embodiment of Christ consciousness, and it's important to differentiate between Christ consciousness, and Jesus Christ. So when Jesus was on the earth, he was an embodiment of that consciousness. And at that time, that level of consciousness was something that was radically new. I mean, even to this day, for someone to embody complete non-judgment, complete unconditional love is radical, right? So at the time, he was that personification. And still is. He's someone you can consider an ascended master, a teacher, an archetype even. Whether or not you are religious or not, or Christian or not, this is a person that was on this earth and brought teachings, and then we convoluted those teachings with patriarchal suppression and humanity convoluted it with its own forms of oppression and took advantage of beliefs so that it could take control of a population of people. So churches and different religious institutions and different leaders took advantage of that and took the message and twisted it to confuse people, to take their power away. So the power in Christ consciousness is that it is purely your own power. Christ consciousness is turning the power back to you. It's reminding you that you are your master. You create your reality. That you are in charge of your awakening. That you are in control of your happiness. And that's something that's very it's very powerful. And to think of an entire population of people, the entire earth, all humanity awakening to that, it's so beautiful. But unfortunately, we have unconscious people, unconscious brothers and sisters who are wanting to maintain a three-dimensional power. And so there's a suppression of that inner power. So that's essentially why that uh, root of uh, Christianity and Jesus's teachings was twisted. It was so that people would not be awakened to their power. When in actuality, that was the whole point of Jesus's embodiment of Christ consciousness in the first place. And also, what I want to say is that Christ consciousness has existed since the beginning of time, since life was formed, since humanity was formed. So it's not something that it's specifically. Um, it didn't. What I want to say is it didn't come with Jesus. Jesus embodied that consciousness, but that consciousness has always been. It's always been available. So, with that said, something else that I want to touch on is um, let me tune in and see what wants to come through. I'm in New York right now and people are clapping, so that's what you'll hear. It's 7 p.m. and people clap for the people that are doctors and nurses right now. Well, this is a perfect symbol for what Christ consciousness is, because Christ consciousness is unity consciousness, is oneness, is togetherness. And so that oneness, that togetherness, that type of consciousness is something that we have access to and that we can activate within ourselves and embody. And through that activation, we start to become aware of all of the separation mentality, all of the programming, all of the conditioning that comes from our upbringing, from society, from culture, from the media. We start to become aware and discerning of that separation mentality. So the more that we activate and we embody that unity consciousness, that Christ consciousness, the more that starts to fall away from our behavior, our patterns, our thoughts, our existence. And so there's the power in that is that if we all did that, there would be complete harmony on the earth if we were all completely accepting of one another. So I hope that clears up a little bit around what the term Christ consciousness is referring to. Again, it's a state of consciousness, and the word Christ isn't necessarily coming from Jesus Christ. Jesus was a master of Christ consciousness. He was an embodiment of Christ consciousness, but you can be an embodiment of Christ consciousness. Christ consciousness exists in and of itself without Jesus, before Jesus. And I would say that there have been many embodiments of Christ consciousness. Mary Magdalene, many different saints, Mother Mary. She was an embodiment of Christ consciousness as well. It's really anyone who is or was awakened to their own inner power of inner love. So this is a very beautiful aspect of us. It's a part of us. Just like anything else, we're multidimensional beings. We have different parts of us available. There's a part of you that likes to laugh. There's a part of you that likes pizza or whatever your favorite food is. There's a part of you that is Sagittarius or whatever your sign is. There's a part of you that likes to rollerblade or whatever your favorite activity is. There's a part of you that is happy. There's a part of you that is sad. We are multidimensional. Anything and everything exists within us. And so with the awareness of Christ consciousness is kind of that like envelope, that hug of all that is into the heart center, and living, breathing, existing from that oneness, from that source, from that unconditional love. And so it's been a very beautiful part of my own spiritual path and my own awakening. And I would love to answer any questions that you might have, point you to any resources that might be helpful. I know Yogananda wrote, he was, if you're not familiar, a famous yogi master. He wrote the book, The Autobiography of Yogananda, and he also wrote a book, I think it's called The Second Coming of Christ. And he talks about Christ consciousness. There are also other teachers that I can point you to, but it's essentially, yeah, I think a part of our awakening, a part of our evolution as humans here on the planet. And if you are familiar with, I know for me, I grew up as Catholic, and I became kind of, I had developed this aversion to any sort of religion or religious text because of all of the oppression and discrimination that came from the backwards religious society that I was exposed to. And I'm not saying that all religious people or religious institutions are, but I mean, many have been, we've had to deal with the oppression of homosexuality, for one, of women. I mean, women are still not allowed to be priests in most churches, right? Anyways, what I'm trying to say is that this really helped me redefine what Christ was. And instead of thinking of it as a person in a book that is on the shelf of a person who's in charge of deciding who is good or bad, I have taken that term through a more universal lens, a universal perspective, and that's been really healing for me in terms of taking my power back, really taking my power back as a sovereign being and as a person who is at one with spirit and has all the power within, right here within the heart center. So I hope that that helps you in some way, and feel free to let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and I'll get back to you. But for now, I think we can begin the activation. So if you want to start to get comfortable, you can either lie down or sit in a meditative posture. I will say that this is a DNA activation, and essentially the thought behind that is that we can talk to our bodies, right? And if you're familiar with meditation or with parenting your body, or self-love, positive affirmations, when we open up a communication with our bodies, there's a magic that starts to bloom from that. And that's something that has become completely aware to me through my own experience, as I'm sure it has for you. And if it hasn't, then don't take my word for it, and certainly try it out for yourself. But in knowing that we have that, when we're conscious of how we're speaking to the body, there's a relationship there, and there's an activation that happens. There's a power there in how we can, I don't want to say control, but how we can influence ourselves, influence our bodies. I know for me, you can take the simplest example of, looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, I love you, and doing that once a day, every day. You would most certainly notice a shift, whether it's a purging of self-hatred, or a awakening to a little bit more happiness in your life. There's something that happens when we turn the light of our awareness to our body and talk to it. And so when you think of what we're made up of, our DNA, talking to our DNA can be so powerful, because it's really that kind of like that recorder that is composing all parts of our physical being, of our physical body. And when we're talking about awakening or ascension or evolution, we really want to take into consideration a holistic approach, right? We're talking about the spiritual, the emotional, the mental, and the physical. So this is really crafting that relationship with the physical and bringing the body along with the evolution of your consciousness. As our consciousness is raising, our vibration is raising, our frequency is raising, we want the body to come along with us. And the body is equally a part of your beingness. And so we don't want to escape the body. We want to be in the body, but we want to be in the body in a more conscious way. So I hope that gives you a little bit of an explanation of why this can be so powerful. So if you want to take a seat, get comfortable or lie down, we're just going to tune in to our breath. And just rest in knowing that, without all of this jargon and this new age terminology, we're really just talking about love here. And right now, we're really just talking about meditating on love. And there's a sweet comfort in that purity and that simplicity, that innocence there. Something so simple, yet so powerful. Tuning into your breath, the rise and fall of your belly. Taking a deep inhalation in and exhaling. Taking your hands and putting them at the heart center, that place just to the right of your beating heart. Let's put our right hand over our left. And tuning into the rise and fall of our chest as we're breathing. Really feeling into the power here in the heart center, the heart chakra. The seed of unity consciousness, Christ consciousness, unconditional love. Just breathing in and out of the heart center, almost as if your nostrils were here. Imagining each inhalation and exhalation coming in and out of the heart. Keep breathing, keep being conscious of your inhalations, exhalations. Tuning into our inner realm, turning our awareness inside. Now imagining a little white light at the center of the heart center. Pure crystalline light. You can almost imagine a clear quartz crystal with light expanding through it. And as the light starts to refract and expand through this crystal, this crystalline, it's filling up the entirety of the heart center, further tuning us into the frequency of love, unconditional love, no judgment, complete neutrality and acceptance. Feeling this love, this light traveling down through the heart center, down past the solar plexus, down the sacral, the navel, down to the root chakra, the base of your spine. Seeing this light at the base of the spine starting to extend as if there's a root of light extending down toward the earth, through the layers of concrete and sediment, the layers of dirt, into the earth, deep down into the core of Gaia, anchoring here, sending our love to Gaia, sending our love to Mother Earth, feeling this connection from the heart center to the core of Gaia. And feeling how this love is accepted and reciprocated by Gaia, her core sending this light of love from Mother Earth up back towards the layers of dirt, up toward all of the layers of earth, past the layers of concrete and man-made structure, back up to the core of the hearts, coming through the base of the spine, traveling all the way up the spine, back to the heart center, and feeling the power of the heart center expanding and growing with this love from Gaia, with gratitude, feeling into this light expanding, breathing in with the light expansion, feeling into the heart, and allowing this light to travel upward as well, and traveling up from the heart center to the throat chakra, the third eye, the crown, feeling this light traveling through the crown, up toward the crystalline grid of Gaia, this planetary grid of energy hugging the planet's atmosphere, this crystalline grid of meridians and connected points, all connecting the planet's energy, the crystalline grid of connection, of unity, and feeling this connection to that grid of consciousness, of heart-centered consciousness, revolving around the Earth's atmosphere, sending our love to the crystalline grid, and feeling that love reciprocated back from the planetary grid of Gaia back down to the crown of your head, feeling this light through the third eye and the throat, back to the heart center, and feeling that pulsing of the light in the heart center expanding beyond your body and revolving around your auric field, creating this bubble of light around your body, centered at the core of your heart center. And expanding this light to every bit of your body, seeing this light bleeding into all of the veins, the muscles, the tissues, feeling all of that love energy flowing throughout the bones, the layers of skin, all parts of your physical body, and zooming into the cells of your body. Within those cells are our DNA strands, activating our sometimes dormant DNA, perhaps sleeping. We gently knock on our DNA's shoulder, on our DNA's door, saying, hey, let's open up Christ consciousness. Let's activate Christ consciousness. Let's activate unconditional love. Seeing the strands of your DNA multiply, expanding with light, this light of love. Revealing your inner goodness that has always been there and is always there, is always available to you. Beginning a conversation with your DNA, saying to yourself in your mind or aloud, DNA, I command you to activate Christ consciousness through me, to me, by me. Activate now. I command this now. I thank you. DNA, activate unconditional love throughout every part of my body, through my cells, to my tissues, my blood, my bones, my skin, my organs. Do this now. I command this now. It is done. It is done. Trusting that this DNA activation is done. It's complete. Available to you from this moment forth. The consciousness of complete unity, of recognition of yourself as whole, as one, and recognizing all parts of nature, of this multi-dimensional universe, as a part of you. Seeing, feeling, hearing, knowing oneness. Oneness stemming from this heart center, this sacred, special place right in the center of your chest. This light available to you at all times, all places, knowing that this is you and the truest version of you, complete unconditional love. And feeling the rise and fall of your chest, feeling the warmth in your hands on your chest. Giving thanks to our DNA, our body. Feeling our breath. Acknowledging that we are embodying Christ consciousness. We are embodying unity, love. Knowing and trusting that you are whole, you are good, you are loved, and you have always been. Taking a nice deep inhalation through the heart center, breathing in and exhaling. Gently taking our hands off our chest, rubbing our hands together, feeling that energy of oneness, of Christ consciousness, of love building within the hands. Placing the hands around the ears. Sending this energy to our senses. Placing the hands on your eyes. And gently around the throat chakra. And anywhere else on the body that feels right. Placing the hands. And gently opening your eyes whenever you're feeling ready. And being gentle with yourself. Tuning into any subtleties, any differences that you feel now versus when you began the meditation. And drinking a little bit of water, a lot of water, staying hydrated, and taking it easy, being gentle with yourself for the remainder of your day, of your night. And I'm sending so much love to you, and I thank you for the work that you're doing in really empowering yourself to the power of your love. It's so necessary, so needed, and true planetary change is happening through your work. So I thank you, and I love you, and I'll see you next time.